What if the happiest Beatle was never truly happy? What if behind that famous smile was a man quietly breaking down, hiding decades of pain behind peace signs and laughter? And now, at 85 years old, Ringo Starr, the drummer who made the world dance, faces the kind of heartbreak that no amount of fame or fortune can protect you from. This is not just the story of the last Beatle standing. It's the story of the little boy from Liverpool who survived death twice, conquered the world, and somehow still ended up alone. Before the world called him Ringo Starr, he was Richard Starkey, born in 1940 in a city shattered by bombs and poverty. His childhood was full of hospital beds and loneliness. At 6 years old, he suffered a burst appendix that nearly killed him. Doctors told his mother to prepare for the worst. He spent months recovering, lying still, staring at ceilings, listening to the rhythm of the world around him. Footsteps, doors, raindrops. That rhythm became his first teacher. He didn't know it yet, but those sounds were shaping the heartbeat of a legend. Then, at 13, another blow. Tuberculosis hit him hard. He spent 2 more years in a sanitarium, separated from friends, cut off from life. Nurses gave him a small drum to keep his spirits up, and something changed. For the first time, he had something that made sense. Every hit of the drum was defiance. Every beat said, "I'm still here." When he walked out of that hospital, weak but alive, he carried with him a determination that would one day echo across the planet. Liverpool after the war was rough. Gray skies, tough streets, broken families. But there was music everywhere. The skiffle craze had begun, and young boys were forming bands with washboards and guitars, dreaming of something bigger. Ringo started playing in local groups like Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. He wasn't flashy, but he had timing, soul, and that unique swing that made every song feel alive. People didn't just hear his drumming, they felt it. Then came the call that changed everything. 3 other Liverpool boys, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison, were looking for a new drummer. When Ringo walked into that smoky club and played with them for the first time, something clicked instantly. The Beatles were born. But it wasn't all cheers at first. The fans loved Pete best. The drummer Ringo replaced. When the Beatles made their debut with him, angry fans shouted, "Pete forever! Ringo never!" They threw things at him on stage, but Ringo smiled through it all. Later he said, "I didn't join the Beatles to be loved. I joined to play." In 1964, the Beatles stepped off a plane in America, and the world lost its mind. Overnight, 4 kids from Liverpool became gods. The screaming never stopped. John was the rebel, Paul the perfectionist, George the quiet mystic, and Ringo the heart. He wasn't the songwriter, but he was the glue, the comic relief, the steady rhythm that held everything together. Kids loved him because he was real, approachable, funny, and kind. He made fame feel human. But behind the charm, Ringo sometimes felt invisible. He once left the studio during the recording of the White Album, convinced the others didn't want him there. He said he felt like the least talented Beatle. When Paul re-recorded the drum track on Back in the USSR himself, Ringo was crushed. He left a note on his drum kit that read, "Thank you for the best band in the world." He went away to Sardinia to clear his head, and on that lonely trip, he wrote Octopus's Garden, a song about wanting a place to hide, a safe corner of the ocean far from all the noise. When he returned to the studio, he found his drum kit covered in flowers, a gift from George and the others begging him to stay. He did, but something inside him had already changed. The brotherhood that once defined the Beatles was beginning to crack. By 1968 and 1969, the magic was fading fast. Business arguments, creative clashes, and personal jealousy were poisoning the bond that made them unstoppable. When the band finally split in 1970, it wasn't just music that ended, it was family. Ringo didn't even get a warning. He found out like the rest of the world, through a newspaper headline announcing Paul's departure. He said later, "The silence after the Beatles was louder than any concert I ever played." He felt betrayed, abandoned, and lost. The 1970s were a dark blur. He had money, fame, and freedom, but no direction. He drank heavily, partied non-stop, and tried to fill the void with chaos. He divorced his first wife, Maureen, and even though he remarried later, the damage inside him had already been done. Ringo became known as the fun Beatle, but in reality, he was a man drowning in his own success. There were nights he drank 16 bottles of wine a day, waking up unsure where he was or what city he'd played in. His wife Barbara once got hurt during a drunken fight. That was the moment Ringo